What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports 200 Show. Today is September 9th, 2021. The NFL regular season starts today. It does not seem like it should already be starting. This has been one of the fastest off seasons ever. Tonight's game is of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Super Bowl defending champs in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And since the NFL season is back, I'm going to do one final Cincinnati Bengals record prediction. You know, me being a huge Bengals fan, and lots of my listeners are Bengals fans. They're about doing one final video of my record prediction, and we'll go ahead and get started here in week one matchup against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend at home. This is going to be interesting against the Minnesota Vikings. Look at the Minnesota Vikings. I've said in multiple videos, I believe the Minnesota Vikings are one of the most underrated teams heading into the season. Dalvin Cook averaged nearly 140 yards last year per game. Kirk Cousins was very, very underrated last year. Justin Jefferson, statistically wise, was the best rookie receiver we've ever seen. Adam Thielen had 14 receiving touchdowns. And if this team had a normal Mike Zimmer defense, they would 100% would have been in the playoffs. But their defense was atrocious last season. They added some nice pieces on defense, getting Mackenzie Alexander, from the Bengals in the offseason. They signed Patrick Peterson, who's been in the league for about a decade now. They had some nice draft picks as well, like Chaz Surratt, the linebacker out of North Carolina. The defensive end from Pittsburgh, Patrick Jones. Both of those selections were very, very good. So I feel like this Vikings team is going to be much better than people think. And I feel like Bengal fans need to stop expecting this is an easy win against the Vikings. Just because they weren't in the playoffs last year doesn't mean they were a bad team. And you look at us, with Burrow and his injury and everything, our offensive line is better than people think. And I feel like, I don't feel like we're getting enough credit, obviously, with our offensive line. Frank Pollock so far has done a great job in the preseason. We've only allowed one sack in the whole preseason. We've not allowed a sack with our first string, starters in the game in the preseason. But my main issue is, with Trey Waynes out, with Eli Apple going to be on Justin Jefferson, that's a matchup nightmare for us. That's a big factor on who will end up winning the game. Then you also look at Burrow, his first game back, since a horrific injury against Washington. Some people don't want him playing week one, which I could, kind of understand why they wouldn't. Really interested to see how Burrow plays. I feel like it might take a week or two to get Burrow back to his normal self, with that horrific injury. He might, not play great this week, but I think, give him a week or two, he's going to be his normal self. But with Eli Apple on, Justin Jefferson, I feel like that's kind of like the nail in the coffin for us. To me, it was always kind of a toss-up who would win this game. But when Trey Waynes, basically a bank robber for us who has yet to play a game, is taking all of our money, has yet to play a game, and he's not playing in week one. And Eli Apple, who wasn't even a guarantee guy to end up making the 53-man roster, is going to be on Justin Jefferson, who's expected to be even better than he was last year. It's going to be very difficult for this Bengals team to end up beating the Vikings. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Justin Jefferson have 125 to 150 receiving yards. So I have us losing here in week one against the Minnesota Vikings. Week two, we actually play another NFC North team. That's the Chicago Bears. This is in Chicago. And it's interesting because there's a chance, depending how bad Andy Dalton plays against the LA Rams this week, that we might see Justin Fields. Obviously, I feel like 100% of Bengal fans would agree that we would feel much more comfortable if we're playing the Bears with Andy Dalton as their starter opposed to Justin Fields. Justin Fields showed lots of promise in the preseason, played really good, had some nice scrambles, had some nice throws as well. But to me, realistically, I really don't know what quarterback will be facing this game. Regardless of it's Justin Fields or Andy Dalton, I still think we're going to be able to pull off a nice road victory here in Chicago because they have Allen Robinson, they have a nice running back in David Montgomery. Their defense is good, but it's not like phenomenal. And looking at this Bears team, we might not be able to score many points against their defense, let's say. But they're not going to score many points against our defense either. It's not that our defense is that great. It's just because, if Andy Dalton wasn't great with us, with A.J. Green, all of our guys, he's definitely not going to be good with just basically Allen Robinson. I feel like regardless of Dalton or Justin Fields plays, I still think we're going to pull off a victory here, go to 1-1 on the year. Next matchup here is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know lots of people think we will end up beating the Steelers here in Week 3. I feel like we're going to beat the Steelers at least once this year. Realistically, though, I think it's going to be at home. Regardless if the Steelers are good or bad, it's really, really difficult to beat the Steelers in Heinz Field. And you look at the Steelers team, their defense, despite their overall play this year is going to be in decline. Their defense is still expected to be great. You look at their offense, Roethlisberger, they're going to take the pressure off him quite a bit and give him the ball a lot more to the running backs like Najee Harris, which to me is a very questionable decision because you're going to be, giving a big workload of your carries in your offense to a guy who's never played an NFL snap before in the regular season. And look at their offensive line. I believe they have 4 new offensive starters on the offensive line. They actually had the worst offensive line in the AFC North. People won't tell you that, but it's the truth. The Steelers have 100% the worst offensive line in the AFC North. It's not us, because some people think we have the worst offensive line in the league, which it's funny because we don't even have the worst one in our own division. And I feel like, we have to, play great this game. We cannot have mess ups and screw ups like we have before in the past against Pittsburgh. I feel like this, we're going to have some struggles against this Pittsburgh defense. This being in Pittsburgh really gives a huge advantage to the Steelers here. And I feel like Burrow is going to play good, but not great this game. I feel like we might have some couple of mistakes in this game like we always do against Pittsburgh. It's going to be a close game, but ultimately have us losing here in Week 3 to drop to 1-2. Week 4 against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home on Thursday Night Football, our only primetime game of the year. I have us winning this game. It's going to be really interesting. Joe Burrow, number 1 pick against Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick. Many people have compared the two. Many people have said that Trevor Lawrence was the better quarterback prospect and Trevor Lawrence is going to be better and all that crap, which is just really, really laughable. But I feel like this is one of our more easier games of our schedule. I do think it might be close, maybe the first half, but I think we'll be able to pull away in the second half. You look at, the major blows to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the this season was the Travis Etienne injury. He's going to be out for the year. They have James Robinson, who's a nice, running back. They have a couple of nice receivers like Marvin Jones and DJ Chark. But I think Lawrence, I feel like he's going to be playing fine. But I feel like, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, it's not good. I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to put up, 30-plus points against this Jacksonville defense here. So we have a victory here in Week 4. It makes us 2-2 the first 4 weeks. And I've seen some people say, we'll go 4-0. That, people need to stop being so biased. Realistically, I think the best case scenario for us is 3-1. I mean, obviously it's 4-0, but I think the most likely best case scenario is 3-1. I don't see us beating the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I do see us beating Pittsburgh once this year, but I think it's going to be in Cincinnati. And I don't see us beating the Vikings with the absence of Trey Waynes and Eli Apple going to be on Justin Jefferson. And something to point out is just really interesting to see how the season goes along with if we perform really bad. Let's say we're 1-3 or 2-4 or something like that. We can maybe see Zach Taylor get fired. It's really, really maybe throughout the season, and they can maybe assign our special teams coach Darren Simmons to the head coaching position for the remainder of the year. And the Bengals cannot afford to screw up to begin the season. They have to start off hot because Zach Taylor's coaching seat right now is extremely hot. I mean, his coaching seat right now is hotter than Selena Gomez in a bikini. It's extremely, extremely hot, and it's not being talked about enough. We start off bad, we could definitely see Taylor being fired. In my opinion, in a Week 5 or Week 6 scenario, that's if we only have 2 wins after Week 6 or something like that. But it's really, really interesting to see how many wins we have throughout this first 5 or 6 weeks, because we have to have, in my opinion, through this first 6 weeks, in my opinion, I would say at least 3. And then, I mean, you can maybe say, that Taylor should maybe get fired, but who knows, and everything like that. And, most people know I'm not a fan of Zach Taylor. And I've seen some people say, especially on Facebook, that Taylor should already be fired. To me, that's just really laughable. You at least have to see how he, coaches and goes with these, new players like Chase and everybody like that with this new improved offense. But as we kind of continue here in Week 5, going up against the Green Bay Packers, I feel like this is one of those games where we could actually have a potential huge win. I do have us losing, but don't be surprised if we pull off a massive upset. Let's look at the Packers. They have Rodgers, Adams, and Aaron Jones, the best quarterback, running back, and wide receiver trio in the NFL. Aside from that, who do they have? They have nobody that really stands out on offense. I mean, they traded to get Randall Cobb. They drafted Amari Rodgers. But I feel like our roster and offense, it's not better than the Packers, but it's comparable with we have much more young depth on offense opposed to the Packers do. Their defense is good, but it's not great. I do think, us stopping Rodgers is going to be a big problem. Us stopping Aaron Jones would be a problem because, our run defense isn't good. And our defense is probably about average. But I feel like, we might not be able to really stop Rodgers or Jones much, but I don't know if this Packers defense can stop our offense much as well. I feel like this game might be closer than people think, but ultimately you kind of got to go with the Packers here with the best quarterback in the league right now, the reigning MVP and Aaron Rodgers. But this game will be closer, in my opinion, than people think. Week 6 here at the Detroit Lions. Looking here at the schedule, this is probably the easiest game of the schedule. Maybe that Jaguars game since it's at home. But with the Lions, they have a nice offensive line. DeAndre Swift, in my opinion, is going to be a tremendous running back this season. But aside from that, I really don't have anybody. I saw somebody have their record prediction and had us going 2-15, and one of our losses was against the Lions, which is just to me very, very laughable because the Lions have nobody who can stop this offense. I mean, Jeffrey Okuda's all right, but that's all they have, it seems like. But I feel like this is going to be our easiest game of the year. Wouldn't be surprised this one we won by like 14 plus or something like that. Easy win here. So we improve to 3-3 on the season. Week 7 at Baltimore. This is an interesting game because you look at J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill. They've both been announced that they're out for the year due to season-ending injuries. Look at our first meeting against the Baltimore Ravens. Despite what the score says, we actually played them pretty well. We lost, I believe, 28-3 or something like that. And, we held Lamar Jackson to just 3 rushing yards, which is just absolutely insane. But due to our offense unable to do anything, our offensive line playing horrible, I believe we gave up 6 or 7 sacks that game. Our defense was on the field the whole game. So, obviously we were giving up points left and right because our defense was on the field the whole game. I feel like this will be closer than people think because, you look at some of our guys. I feel like our run defense will be better than people think this year. It's not going to be great. I think it'll be all right. I mean, you have a guy like Akeem Davis-Gaither who's tremendous against stopping the run. Hopefully he plays more this year. We have Sam Hubbard, who's one of the best edge rushers against the run. And with, having a huge blow to the Baltimore Ravens offense and J.K. Dobbins, out for the year, he was going to be their star running back this year. Maybe, they don't really run as much. Or if they do, it's not going to be nearly as efficient as it was, in years past. But I have Baltimore, defeating us here in Baltimore. But I think this might be closer than people think. With this loss, we dropped to 3-4. Week 8 at the New York Jets. This, to me, I'm very excited about this game. Zach Wilson, I really, really like him a lot. I think he's going to be good in New York. I have said this before. If Zach Wilson came out of the 2020 draft class and had the performance like he did his last year with BYU, honestly, I don't know who I would rather take with the first overall pick, Joe Burrow or Zach Wilson. With the 2020 overall pick, we had number 1. I like Zach Wilson that much. And, the Jets is the best team they've had in quite some time. They have some nice offensive linemen like Mekhi Becton, the huge offensive lineman from Louisville. They traded up to get a nice guard, interior offensive lineman from USC, Elijah Vera Tucker. They signed a nice couple guys as well, like Corey Davis. They have, Denzel Mims, who I'm high on. They drafted Elijah Moore, who's going to be really good. They also have a couple of nice defensive players like Marcus May. They had They had Carl Lawson. Obviously, they signed him away from us in the offseason. He's announced he's out for the year due to a season-ending injury. But I feel like, every single team has that one game where they lose and they shouldn't, and it's not being biased. And I know I might sound crazy, but every single team, every single year has that one game. For instance, we had a couple of last year we should have just not lost. But I have us winning this game, but don't be surprised if the Jets maybe upset us here. We maybe play just a crappy game here in Week 8. But I do have us winning, and with this game, we are 4-4 on the year. Week 9 versus the Cleveland Browns. This is interesting because somehow, some way, the Cleveland Browns have a better roster than they did last year, which just seems impossible. They are clearly the front runners in this AFC North division. It's their division for the taking. Nobody's even remotely on the same planet as them when it comes to winning the AFC North. And I just feel like, this game has potential to be close. In years past, these Browns and Bengals games, despite us, not winning many, they've always been very close. Last year, I believe both those games were one possession, and we really could have ended up winning, at least probably even one of those games, maybe even two. But, I just feel like the Browns, even having a better roster than last year, I feel like Mayfield's going to have a big leap in production this year. Interested in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe beat the Browns once this season. But I do have the Bengals losing here in Week 9. We dropped to 4-5 on the year. So Week 10 is our bye week. And I have us at 4-5, which I honestly do not think is bad. I feel like 4-5, 5-4, we should expect that. 5 wins at the most, in my opinion, heading into our bye week. But I would say 4 is what we should expect. We have less than 4. That is just unacceptable. Because just really looking at this, first half, the Jets, the Lions, the Jaguars, the Bears, that's already 4. We're capable of beating another one of those teams. So 4-5 this to start off week into our bye week in Week 10. As we continue here in Week 11, we go on the road to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. This game is interesting because you look at the Raiders. I always say the Raiders are one of those teams who are capable of beating the Chiefs one week and they end up beating them. Then the next week they end up losing to the Philadelphia Eagles. It just makes no sense. And it actually does happen. Look at the Raiders last year. They beat the Chiefs in their first game against them. And then their second meeting, they almost beat them in primetime football. They almost actually swept the Chiefs, as crazy as that sounds, last season. They started off 5-3 last year, and I believe they finished 8-8 or something like that. Like, they are so inconsistent. One of our main issues the past several years is to stop tight ends. Obviously they have one of the best tight ends in the NFL in Darren Waller. If we're able to, stop him just a little bit, I feel like this was a win here in Week 11, and we go to 5-5 on the year. Week 12, like I said, I expect us to beat Pittsburgh at least once this year. Playing in home in Cincinnati gives us a huge advantage, and I just think we're going to beat them once at least. Their offensive line is worse than ours. Their defense is good, but their offense is horrible. We have a better offense. They have a better defense. We have a better offensive line. They have a better defensive line. It's really interesting. It'll be very interesting because this is kind of the 2/3 the way through the season, how Ben Roethlisberger performs at this point. Because, around this time last year, in the week 13, 14, that's when he really started a major decline in the play, it seemed like. So maybe we kind of see a similar situation with Roethlisberger this year. But I fully expect a win here for us, in Week 12 against the Bengals. And that makes us at 6-5 on the season, the first time we are over 500 on this schedule. Week 13 against the LA Chargers, I have us losing this game here. I really think it's going to be a close game. I got to pick the Chargers here. Herbert was absolutely phenomenal. And I know lots of people are going to say I'm wrong on this, but it's the truth. There was times last season where the Chargers' offensive line was worse than ours. PFF had the Chargers rated the worst offensive line in the league last season. They have Austin Eckler coming back from injury. They had the best offensive lineman in the class, and I'm including Penei Sewell in that. I think Rashawn Slater was better. They got Slater, was just absolutely phenomenal. It was the best value pick in the entire first round. They got some great secondary help in getting Asante Samuel Jr. in the second round. They had the best overall free agency acquisition in signing Corey Linsley from the Green Bay Packers. Linsley was not only the best center in the league last year, but you can make a case that he was the best offensive lineman in the league last year. For the Green Bay Packers, they have some nice, weapons and stuff. They have Derwin James coming back. He's a top 3 safety in the league. I feel like it's going to be a close game. Herbert against Burrow, very, very highly anticipated matchup here. And it's going to be a great game. I wouldn't be surprised if we won, but I have us losing this game here. But it's going to be a close one. And with this loss here, we drop to 6-6 on the season. Week 14, home against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a intriguing one because you don't know who's going to start for the San Francisco 49ers. If Jimmy Garoppolo starts for the 49ers here, I feel much more comfortable because Jimmy Garoppolo is basically a game manager. But with Trey Lance here, Trey Lance has played pretty well in the preseason. It was announced that Garoppolo will be starting the week 1, so he'll be starting so far for the San Francisco 49ers. But with Trey Lance, it's interesting because you don't really know how to scout him much. He's only started 13 career games in college. He's really, really productive. Only had one career pick during his time with North Dakota State. It reminds me a lot of Josh Allen and Deshaun Watson combined. I feel like he has potential in a couple of years to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And this is me with this prediction right here in Week 14 is if Trey Lance starts. We kind of struggle at times with mobile quarterbacks and with the uncertainty how you're going to scout Trey Lance. I have us losing this game because I think Lance will be starting here. If Garoppolo starts, then I would maybe give us the edge. But since I think Lance will start here. And Week 14, I have us losing. We drop to 6-7 on the season. Week 15, we get a win here against the Denver Broncos and improve that to 500 to 7-7. And this is really, really, really interesting. The Denver Broncos have one of the best young offensive talents in the league. I mean, they have Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Javonte Williams. They have a decent offensive line. They have a nice, defense as well. With Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, Justin Simmons. If they can just figure out their quarterback situation, if they can have a average, consistent quarterback, whether that's Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock, this team is a playoff team. Teddy Bridgewater is not consistent at all. I believe in last year he was 0-8 when it was potential game tying or game winning drives with the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, we've seen how inconsistent Drew Lock is. But if one of these quarterbacks can be consistent and be just, an average game manager, like 220 yards on a touchdown or something like that, turnover-free football, this is a really, really good team. I feel like this is a possible situation we are maybe on upset watch here, but we might lose. But with the inconsistent QB play, it's kind of hard not picking us here because obviously, regardless of how good Bridgewater or Locke is here this season with Denver, they're not going to be better than Burrow. Potential upset watch here in Week 15, but I do have us winning, and we improve to 7-7, back to 500 on the season. Our final 3 games here are the crucial 100% the most important 3 games of our season. And in my opinion, I've said it before, Zach Taylor has to get 7 wins. If he does not get 7 wins, he should no longer be the coach of the Bengals following this season. But looking at this team, there is no excuse why we can't get 7 wins. And it's interesting because we currently have 7 wins right now. We are 7-7 heading into our final 3 games. And our final 3 games are our most toughest 3-game stretch of our season. We are playing against 3 really, really good teams. And I feel like if we have 6 wins or 5 wins heading into this 3-game stretch, I guarantee you there's going to be talks about Zach Taylor possibly being fired. Because this 3-game stretch is no joke, like I mentioned before. Zach Taylor is in the hot seat, and it's extremely, extremely hot. It's hotter than one of those ghost peppers. It's really interesting because if we have 6 wins right here or 5, go ahead and be searching for a new head coach, in my opinion. Because let's look at these games here. Versus the Baltimore Ravens, like I said, I feel like these games might be closer than people think, but ultimately I don't see us winning this game here at home because the Baltimore is going to be playing 110%. They're going to be in playoff contention, battling possibly close to the AFC North division title. The next game here is the Kansas City Chiefs at home. We are not beating the Chiefs. And I've seen a couple people say that we can compete with the Chiefs and beat them. That's not going to happen. Their offensive line is tremendous, and they somehow have a better roster than last season. And then look at Week 18. Week 18 is very, very, very important Because let's say the Cleveland Browns have the first overall seed in the AFC North, and they've already clinched it heading into the final week of the season. There's a 95% chance they're going to be resting their starters, so there's not a chance they get hurt in a meaningless game heading into the postseason. So it's interesting because if, let's say, the Browns, if they don't have this first seed, obviously Mayfield, Chubb, Kareem Hunt, all these guys are going to be playing. And realistically, we have a lot less chance to win as opposed to if they were playing their starters. If the Browns do not have the number 1 seed heading into this Week 18, that is huge. Because, I mean, Baltimore at home, despite at home, that's still a very, very tough game. Kansas City at home, that's still a very tough game. I don't think we're going to be either one of those teams. And then in Cleveland, despite our games being close with Cleveland, I still don't think we're going to beat them here, especially in Week 18, because it's going to be definitely them battling out for what position they could possibly get in the playoffs. The only way I see us beating Cleveland here in Week 18 is if they rest their starters, and that is huge because, like I mentioned, we have 5 or 6 wins. It's interesting because we would have to finish the year, if we end up beating Cleveland, maybe 6, 7 wins to finish off the year. But if we lose these 3 final games, and if we are, let's say, we are 6-8 heading into our final 3 games, or 5-9. I don't see Zach Taylor being our next head coach because, I mean, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cleveland, despite there's lots of high hopes for this team this year, a 3-game losing streak to end the season, that's going to have a lot of sour taste in people's mouth. Lots of the fan base is going to be ticked off. We're going to be peed off. We're going to want change because we know we are capable of being better than a 6-win team or maybe even a 7-win team, especially losing a 3-game losing streak against, I know it's 3 good teams, but still a 3-game losing streak to end the season is not ending the season on a good note, regardless of how good you started the season off. So to me, I feel like these 3 games with Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cleveland are the 3 most crucial and most important 3-game stretch of our season because it could really determine our future. Because, I mean, who knows? If we are, like I said, if we're 5-9 or 6-8 or something like that, heading into our 3 final games, we end up losing all 3 of those games. I think, in my honest opinion, there's a realistic chance that Taylor might not be the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals anymore. Like I said, I mean, he's on the hot seat right now. You can make a case he should be number 1 on the hot seat. He's definitely deserved that position if he is number 1. I mean, his hot seat, like I said, is harder than Selena Gomez and a bikini. It's harder than a ghost pepper. It's harder than just about anything. So this is very, very crucial to win at least one of these 3 final games. Because if we don't, I really could see Zach Taylor being fired at the end of the season. So with this, we were 7-7 with that Week 15 victory against the Denver Broncos. We lose to the Baltimore Ravens at 7-8. And then we lose to the Chiefs. That's 7-9. And Week 18, I have us beating the Browns because, like I mentioned earlier, I believe that they might end up being the number 1 seed in the AFC. So they're going to be resting their starters. And I have us to win at 8-9. But like I said, if it's crucial if the Browns if they're not the number 1 seed, if they're playing their starters in that game, it's going to be interesting because that could really determine our future and if Taylor is our head coach or not. It's really weird. Something as simple as that could really change our future. But like I said, this 3-game stretch is the most crucial stretch. It's the most crucial 3 games of our schedule with Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Cleveland Browns. So my record prediction for this team, is 8-9. I feel like we're capable of maybe 9-8. 9-8, I think 8-9, 9-8. That's kind of the range I'm in. The absolute max I see this team winning this season is 10 games. Because I know we have some games that kind of look easy, but there's always that one game we lose that we shouldn't. And lots of these teams are playoff caliber teams. In my opinion, anything less than 7 wins, there's no reason Zach Taylor should be the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals next season. No excuses at all. I mean, he only has 6 wins in 2 seasons. You better get at least 7 wins this year. We are fully capable of it. We have an improved roster compared to last season. Joe Burrow has half a season under his belt. He's more experienced. We have Joe Mixon coming back from injury. One of the most underrated wide receiver groups in the NFL. So we are definitely capable and should have at least 7 wins. Anything less, Zach Taylor era should be over in Cincinnati. So once again, my record prediction is 8-9. My absolute ceiling for us is 10-7. My floor for us is honestly 7-10. I mean, we are capable and 100% should get 7 wins this year. That really about does it for this video. I really appreciate all you all watching and everything. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would really, really appreciate it. And I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hine.